Welcome to Nightmare Chilling Legends, where we dive deep into the world's most haunted locations and chilling urban legends. Tonight, as the soothing sound of rain fills the air, we'll explore 3 terrifying tales of paranormal activity. First, we visit the LaLaurie mansion, where unimaginable cruelty has left the spirits of the enslaved trapped in eternal torment. Next, we uncover the Black Hope Curse, a suburban nightmare where unmarked graves brought restless spirits into modern homes. Finally, we board the Queen Mary, where the elusive shadow people are said to stalk the ship's dark corners. Relax and let the rain guide you through these eerie stories, but beware, these are not for the faint of heart. As we unravel the dark history behind these locations, you'll find yourself drawn into the mysterious and the unknown. Could it be possible that these spirits are still with us today? Be sure to subscribe to Nightmare Chilling Legends for more ghost stories and haunted history. And remember, hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next chilling tale.
The RMS Queen Mary, once a luxurious ocean liner, now sits docked in Long Beach, California, serving as a museum and hotel. But beneath its glamorous history lies a much darker tale. Over the years, the Queen Mary has garnered a reputation as one of the most haunted places in the world. The ship, which sailed from 1936 to 1967, witnessed a range of events, from high society balls and wartime voyages to untimely deaths. But among the numerous ghostly encounters reported on the ship, one phenomenon stands out: the shadow people. Who are these shadowy figures that seemingly drift through the ship's dark corners, lurking just out of sight? Are they the spirits of passengers, crew members, or something far more malevolent? Let's delve into the chilling history of the Queen Mary, explore the terrifying sightings of the shadow people, and uncover the ship's most haunted locations where these spectral figures are often encountered. The dark history of the Queen Mary. The Queen Mary was once the height of luxury travel, transporting the rich and famous across the Atlantic. During World War II, however, the ship was transformed into a troop carrier, earning the nickname the Grey Ghost due to its speed and colour. The ship's wartime service wasn't without tragedy. One of the most infamous incidents occurred in 1942 when the Queen Mary accidentally collided with one of its escort ships, the HMS Curacoa, slicing it in half and causing the deaths of over 300 sailors. This devastating event left a lasting mark on the ship, and some believe the souls of those lost that day still haunt its decks. Beyond wartime, many passengers and crew members met their untimely end aboard the Queen Mary due to accidents, illness, or other unfortunate events. From drownings in the pool to mechanical accidents in the engine room, the ship has been the site of several tragic deaths. These incidents have contributed to the ship's haunted reputation, with reports of ghostly encounters becoming more frequent after the ship was permanently docked in 1967. The shadow people. What are they? While traditional ghost sightings on the Queen Mary include full-bodied apparitions of crew members, passengers, and children, the shadow people are much more elusive. Unlike most ghostly encounters where spirits are said to resemble their human forms, the shadow people appear as dark, humanoid shapes with no distinct features. They are often described as darker than the surrounding shadows, as if they absorb the light around them. They tend to be fleeting, seen out of the corner of the eye or vanishing as soon as they are noticed. Yet their presence feels undeniably threatening. Many paranormal investigators and mediums who have visited the Queen Mary claim that these entities are more than just lost souls. Some believe the shadow people could be the result of residual energy left behind by the ship's tragic history, while others suggest they may be malevolent spirits or even interdimensional beings. Their true nature remains a mystery, but encounters with these shadowy figures have left many guests shaken and unnerved. Haunted locations on the Queen Mary. The shadow people have been spotted all over the ship, but there are certain locations where these dark entities are seen more frequently. Here are the most haunted spots on the Queen Mary where shadow people are known to lurk. The engine room. The ship's engine room is notorious for ghostly encounters, and it's here that many visitors have reported seeing shadow people darting between the massive machinery. In 1966, a crewman named John Pedder was crushed to death by a heavy watertight door. Some believe his spirit still lingers in the engine room, but the dark figures that move in the shadows suggest something more sinister may also be present. The first-class swimming pool. No longer in use, the first-class pool is one of the ship's most haunted locations. Many visitors have reported hearing the sounds of splashing water, despite the pool being empty for decades. Apparitions of women in vintage bathing suits have been spotted, but it's the shadow people who seem to frequent the pool's edges, watching silently from the shadows. B-deck and the boiler room. The B-deck is one of the most active areas on the Queen Mary for paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report feeling an oppressive presence as they walk through the narrow hallways. The boiler room, where the ship's immense power was generated, is another hotspot for shadow people sightings. The dark, confined spaces and the overwhelming sense of dread make these areas particularly eerie. The Grand Salon, once the lavish dining area for first-class passengers, the Grand Salon now hosts events and paranormal tours. Guests have reported seeing shadowy figures standing at the far end of the room, often near the grand staircase. These figures appear to observe from a distance before vanishing into the darkness. Cabin B340. Perhaps the most infamous cabin aboard the Queen Mary, Cabin B340 is so haunted that it was once closed off to the public. Shadow people have been seen standing at the foot of the bed, and guests have reported hearing knocks, footsteps, and even seeing objects move on their own. Some speculate that a violent incident occurred in the cabin, leading to the powerful energy that lingers there. The isolation ward. During its years as a troop transport during Dobby II, the Queen Mary was outfitted with an isolation ward for sick and injured soldiers. This area is now known for its heavy, oppressive atmosphere, and many have seen shadowy figures moving through the narrow corridors. The overwhelming feeling of being watched is almost unbearable for some visitors. The bridge, the Queen Mary's Bridge, where the ship's officers once navigated across the Atlantic, is another location where shadow people have been seen. Tour guides and visitors have reported seeing dark shapes moving near the ship's controls, despite the area being deserted. Terrifying encounters. There are countless stories from visitors, staff, and paranormal investigators who have encountered the shadow people aboard the Queen Mary. One particularly harrowing tale comes from a guest who stayed in one of the ship's cabins. Late one night, the guest awoke to a dark figure standing in the corner of the room. At first, they thought it was just a shadow, but as they blinked, the figure moved closer, without making a sound. Frozen in fear, the guest watched as the figure stood at the foot of the bed for several moments before dissolving into the darkness. In the engine room, a paranormal investigator reported seeing a shadowy figure move between the massive machinery, only to disappear as they got closer. Despite no one else being present, the investigator also heard footsteps and felt the sensation of being followed throughout their time in the engine room. On a guided ghost tour, several guests reported feeling a cold breeze pass by them in the otherwise stagnant air of the Grand Salon. Moments later, they saw a shadowy figure standing by the grand staircase. The figure lingered for a few seconds before fading into the wall. These sightings have led many to believe that the Queen Mary is not just haunted by the spirits of its former passengers and crew, but by something far darker and more menacing. Theories behind the shadow people. The appearance of shadow people aboard the Queen Mary has led to a range of theories about their origin. Some believe they are the spirits of those who died aboard the ship, either passengers or crew members who met tragic ends. However, the distinct lack of features and the eerie nature of these figures have led others to speculate that they may not be human spirits at all. One theory suggests that the shadow people are the result of residual energy, left behind from the emotional and physical trauma that occurred on the ship. This energy could have manifested into shadowy figures that repeat the same actions over and over again, like a loop in time. Another theory is that the Queen Mary's shadow people are malevolent spirits or entities that have been drawn to the ship's dark history. These entities could be feeding off the fear and energy of the living, using the ship as a conduit to manifest. More outlandish theories suggest that the shadow people could be interdimensional beings, entities from another realm who cross over into our world through weak points, like locations with strong paranormal activity. The Queen Mary, with its long history of death and tragedy, could be one such weak point. Conclusion. The shadow people of the Queen Mary are one of the most unsettling aspects of this haunted ocean liner's paranormal activity. Whether they are lost souls, residual energy, or something far more sinister, their presence has left a lasting impression on those who have encountered them. The Queen Mary's dark past, combined with the countless reports of ghostly encounters, makes it a must-visit location for paranormal enthusiasts and anyone fascinated by the unknown. But the question remains, are the shadow people simply the remnants of the ship's tragic history, or are they something far more dangerous? If you want to uncover more haunted locations and dive into terrifying urban legends, subscribe to Nightmare Chilling Legends. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video about the world's creepiest places. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced a shadow person?
The Black Hope Curse is one of the most chilling and mysterious hauntings in Texas history. The story begins in the early 1980s, when a quiet suburban neighborhood in Crosby, Texas, became the site of terrifying paranormal activity that left its residents shaken. The source of the haunting? A forgotten cemetery beneath the foundations of several homes. The curse is named after the Black Hope Cemetery, a final resting place for formerly enslaved African Americans in the 19th century. Over time, the cemetery was neglected and eventually forgotten, its grave markers lost as the land was sold and developed into residential properties. It wasn't until strange occurrences began plaguing the residents of Newport, a seemingly normal suburban development, that the area's dark past began to resurface. The haunting of the Black Hope Cemetery is not just a tale of ghostly apparitions and eerie sounds, but of a deep and unsettling history that continues to affect those who live on the land to this day. In this video, we will explore the tragic story behind the Black Hope Curse, the terrifying experiences of those who lived there, and the lasting impact of this haunted ground, the Forgotten Cemetery. In the 1980s, Sam and Judith Haney moved into their dream home in Newport, Texas, unaware of the horrific secrets hidden beneath their feet. Shortly after moving in, the Haneys decided to dig a swimming pool in their backyard. However, as they dug deeper into the ground, they uncovered something shocking: human remains, buried in what appeared to be unmarked graves. After some investigation, the Haneys learned that their house, and many others in the neighborhood, had been built over the long-forgotten Black Hope Cemetery, a burial ground for formerly enslaved African Americans from the 19th century. The developers had bulldozed over the cemetery, selling plots of land and building homes without acknowledging the sacred ground they were disturbing. The remains the Haneys uncovered were identified as those of Betty and Charlie Thomas, a couple who had been buried in the Black Hope Cemetery decades earlier. The discovery sparked outrage among the neighborhood residents, but it also triggered something far more sinister: a series of paranormal events that would terrorize the Haney family and others living nearby. The haunting begins. Shortly after unearthing the graves, the Haneys began experiencing strange occurrences in their home. At first it was minor: lights flickering, objects disappearing and reappearing in strange places. But soon, the activity escalated. Judith Haney would wake up in the middle of the night, feeling a presence watching her. Doors would open and close by themselves, and whispers could be heard echoing through the house when no one else was there. One of the most terrifying incidents occurred when Judith witnessed a shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed. The figure was dark and featureless, but it exuded a sense of overwhelming dread. When she tried to move, she found herself paralyzed, as if an unseen force was holding her down. Moments later, the figure vanished, leaving Judith shaken and terrified. The paranormal activity wasn't confined to the Haney's home. Neighbors also reported similar experiences, objects moving on their own, strange noises in the night, and ghostly figures appearing in their homes and yards. Some even claimed to see full-bodied apparitions of people dressed in old-fashioned clothing, wandering the streets late at night as if searching for something lost. The curse intensifies. As the hauntings grew more intense, the Haneys began to believe they had disturbed the dead by uncovering the graves. In an attempt to bring peace to the spirits, the Haneys reburied the remains of Betty and Charlie Thomas, hoping that by honoring the dead, the paranormal activity would stop. But it didn't. In fact, the hauntings only seemed to grow stronger. The Haneys began hearing loud knocking sounds on their walls and floors, even though no one else was in the house. Faucets would turn on and off by themselves, and appliances would malfunction in bizarre ways. Judith described the atmosphere of the house as oppressive, as if the very air was thick with anger and unrest. Their neighbors, Ben and Jean Williams, also experienced the horrors of the Black Hope curse. The Williams family's home was located near the Haneys, and soon after moving in, they too began to notice strange occurrences. Their plants would wither and die overnight, despite being well cared for. John would hear the sounds of footsteps in empty rooms and feel sudden cold spots, even in the middle of summer. But the worst was yet to come. One day, Jean Williams became violently ill, suffering from unexplained headaches and weakness. Doctors were unable to diagnose the cause of her illness, and her health continued to deteriorate. Some believed that Jean had become a target of the restless spirits, who were punishing the living for desecrating their burial grounds. A deadly encounter. In an attempt to escape the relentless haunting, the Williams family decided to move out of their home. But before they could leave, tragedy struck. Ben and Jean's daughter, Tina, suddenly collapsed and died of a heart attack at the age of 30. The family was devastated, and many believed that Tina's death was directly linked to the Black Hope curse. The Williams family was not alone in their belief. Other residents of the neighborhood had also suffered from mysterious illnesses and sudden deaths. It seemed as though the curse was not just confined to haunting the living, it was taking lives. The Williams family eventually sued the developers for building homes on top of the cemetery without proper disclosure. However, they lost the case, with the court ruling that there was no conclusive evidence linking the deaths and hauntings to the cemetery. Still, the residents of Newport knew better. They had lived through the terror and felt the wrath of the Black Hope curse firsthand. Theories behind the haunting. The Black Hope curse has sparked a wide range of theories over the years, with paranormal investigators, historians, and locals all trying to make sense of the events that unfolded in the neighborhood. One popular theory is that the hauntings were caused by disturbed spirits, the souls of those buried in the Black Hope Cemetery who had been disrespected and displaced by the development. Many believe that these spirits were angered by the desecration of their graves and sought revenge on those who lived on the land. Another theory suggests that the hauntings were the result of psychic energy. According to this theory, the trauma and suffering of those buried in the cemetery had left a residual energy on the land, which manifested as paranormal activity when the graves were disturbed. This residual energy could have been strong enough to cause physical effects, such as the illness and deaths that plagued the neighborhood. Some have also suggested that the Black Hope curse may have been fueled by ancient rituals or spiritual practices. There is evidence to suggest that the African American community who used the cemetery may have practiced certain rituals or burial customs that were deeply rooted in their cultural beliefs. By disrupting these sacred practices, the living may have unknowingly invoked the wrath of the spirits. Modern-day Black Hope. Today, the Black Hope Cemetery is still a point of interest for paranormal investigators and those fascinated by the supernatural. While many of the homes in the Newport subdivision are still standing, some residents claim that the hauntings continue to this day. Paranormal investigators have reported strange occurrences while exploring the area, including EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, cold spots, and mysterious orbs of light. Despite the eerie atmosphere, many of the homes remain occupied, though residents are often reluctant to speak about their experiences. The story of the Black Hope curse serves as a stark reminder of the importance of respecting the dead and the sacred land where they rest. Conclusion. The Black Hope curse is more than just a ghost story. It's a tale of forgotten history, tragic events, and the consequences of disturbing what should have remained at peace. The experiences of the Haney and Williams families, along with other residents of Newport, paint a picture of a haunting that goes beyond mere coincidence. Whether it was the spirits of the long-deceased or the powerful energy left behind by their suffering, one thing is certain. The land beneath the Black Hope Cemetery holds dark secrets, and those who live there are not alone.
The LaLaurie Mansion in the heart of the French Quarter of New Orleans is notorious for its dark and gruesome history. Considered one of the most haunted houses in America, the mansion was the residence of Madame Delphine LaLaurie, a woman whose horrific actions have echoed through time. Behind the mansion's grand exterior lies a story of unimaginable cruelty, torment, and paranormal activity that continues to haunt the property and those who visit it. Built in the early 1800s, the mansion became the center of scandal when the truth about Madame LaLaurie's treatment of enslaved people was revealed. Hidden behind her wealthy, charming facade was a woman who inflicted unthinkable suffering on those she held captive. The atrocities that took place within the mansion's walls left an indelible mark, and it's said that the spirits of those who suffered under LaLaurie's hand still linger, unable to move on. This video will delve into the horrific history of the LaLaurie Mansion, the ghostly encounters reported over the years, and the lasting impact of Madame LaLaurie's legacy. We'll also explore the mansion's haunted reputation and examine why it remains one of the most feared and talked about locations in New Orleans. The wealth and charm of Madame Delphine LaLaurie. Delphine LaLaurie was a prominent figure in New Orleans society during the early 19th century. Born into wealth in 1787, she married 3 times, each time ascending the social ladder. By the time she married her third husband, physician Dr. Leonard Louis LaLaurie, she had established herself as a glamorous and influential woman in the city's elite circles. The LaLaurie Mansion, located at 1140 Royal Street, became a symbol of their status. A stunning 3-story building that hosted lavish parties and attracted the city's most powerful figures. To the public, Madame LaLaurie appeared to be a gracious hostess and doting wife. She was known for her refined manners, her beauty, and her seemingly charitable nature. But behind the grand facade of her life was a dark secret that would shock the city to its core. Rumors about Madame LaLaurie's mistreatment of enslaved people had circulated for years, but it wasn't until a tragic fire broke out at the mansion that the full extent of her cruelty was revealed. The fire and the horrific discovery. In 1834, a fire broke out in the LaLaurie Mansion's kitchen. The flames spread quickly, drawing the attention of neighbors and passers-by. As they rushed to help extinguish the blaze, they encountered something far more horrifying than the fire itself. As the story goes, the fire had been started by an enslaved cook who was chained to the kitchen stove. She had set the fire in a desperate attempt to escape the abuse she and others had endured at the hands of Madame LaLaurie. When concerned neighbors attempted to help evacuate the enslaved individuals from the burning house, they found that they were being kept in horrifying conditions. In a locked attic, they discovered a scene of unimaginable horror. Several enslaved people were found shackled and mutilated, some with broken bones that had been grotesquely set in unnatural positions. Others were found with deep wounds, scars from whips and chains, and signs of torture. It was clear that they had been subjected to prolonged suffering. According to some accounts, The victims had been kept in the attic for months or even years, enduring unimaginable pain and isolation. The neighbors were horrified, and the news of the gruesome discovery spread like wildfire throughout New Orleans. Madame LaLaurie's reputation was destroyed overnight. An angry mob descended on the mansion, demanding justice for the enslaved people she had tortured. By the time the mob arrived, however, Madame LaLaurie had fled the city, vanishing into the night. Her whereabouts after her escape remain a mystery, with some reports claiming she fled to France, where she lived out the rest of her days in relative anonymity. The haunting of LaLaurie Mansion. After Madame LaLaurie fled, the mansion remained vacant for many years. However, it soon became known as a hotspot for paranormal activity. The atrocities committed within its walls left a deep psychic scar on the property, and it is said that the spirits of those who were tortured by Madame LaLaurie are still trapped within the house, unable to find peace. Many visitors and residents have reported eerie encounters in the mansion, from disembodied voices and ghostly footsteps to full-bodied apparitions. The most common sightings are those of the tortured enslaved people, their spirits still bound to the place where they suffered so greatly. Some have reported seeing figures in chains, wandering aimlessly through the house or standing by windows, as if waiting for their chance to escape. One of the most famous stories of the mansion's haunting involves the sound of screaming. On quiet nights, passers-by have reported hearing the faint but unmistakable sound of screams coming from within the walls of the mansion. These screams are often described as anguished cries of pain, believed to be the echoes of the enslaved people who were tortured by Madame LaLaurie. Even those standing outside the mansion have claimed to feel a deep sense of unease, as though they are being watched by unseen eyes. The children's apparitions. Another common ghostly phenomenon involves the apparitions of children. Several visitors have reported seeing the ghostly figures of young children running through the halls of the mansion. These children are often described as being dressed in tattered clothing, their faces pale and expressionless. Some believe these spirits to be the children of the enslaved people who died in the mansion, while others suggest they may be the spirits of children who were also victims of Madame LaLaurie's cruelty. One particularly disturbing story comes from a former tenant of the mansion. In the 19th century, the mansion was converted into apartments, and a young girl living there reported seeing a ghostly child at the foot of her bed on multiple occasions. The ghostly child would stand silently, watching the tenant as she slept, before vanishing into thin air. The phantom of Madame LaLaurie. While the spirits of the enslaved people are said to haunt the mansion, there have also been sightings of Madame LaLaurie's own ghost. Some believe that her restless spirit has returned to the place where her cruelty was uncovered, unable to escape the horrors she inflicted. One of the most famous sightings occurred in the early 20th century, when the mansion was used as a boarding house. A tenant reported waking up in the middle of the night to see a woman standing at the foot of her bed. The woman was dressed in an old-fashioned gown and had a stern, menacing expression. When the tenant asked the woman who she was, the figure reportedly whispered, "I am Madame LaLaurie," before vanishing into the darkness. Other visitors have reported seeing Madame LaLaurie's ghost wandering through the mansion's halls, often appearing in full view before disappearing suddenly. Some describe her as looking exactly as she did in her portraits, an elegant woman in fine clothing, but with a sinister, malevolent presence. The hauntings continue. Despite its haunted reputation, the LaLaurie mansion has changed hands numerous times over the years, with many owners attempting to restore or renovate the property. Each time, reports of paranormal activity have continued, with workers and residents alike claiming to have experienced strange occurrences. Tools have reportedly gone missing, only to reappear in strange places. Doors have slammed shut on their own, and furniture has been found mysteriously overturned. The mansion has also attracted the attention of paranormal investigators, who have conducted several investigations within its walls. Many of these investigations have yielded chilling results, with investigators capturing EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, strange orbs of light and unexplained cold spots. The legacy of Madame LaLaurie. The legacy of Delphine LaLaurie is one of horror and cruelty. Though she was once a celebrated figure in New Orleans high society, her dark deeds have overshadowed any positive contributions she may have made. Her name is now synonymous with evil, and the mansion she once called home stands as a reminder of the suffering she inflicted on those who were powerless to escape her cruelty. Today, the LaLaurie Mansion is a popular stop on ghost tours in New Orleans, and its terrifying history continues to draw visitors from around the world. Those brave enough to approach the mansion often leave with a feeling of unease, as though the spirits of the past are still watching and waiting. The LaLaurie mansion serves as a stark reminder of the horrors of slavery and the capacity for human cruelty. It also stands as a testament to the belief that the past can never truly be buried, especially when it is drenched in pain and suffering. The ghosts of the LaLaurie mansion remind us that some wounds never heal and some spirits never rest. The LaLaurie mansion is more than just a haunted house. It's a symbol of the dark side of history, where unimaginable cruelty left a permanent mark on the lives of those who suffered under Madame LaLaurie's hand. The spirits that still linger within its walls serve as a reminder that the past is never truly gone, especially when it involves such deep trauma and horror.